Okay, folks, so I said I would do a video going over the entire scene that Zach and Fatima had at the law firm, particularly the opening, well, close to the opening scene when Zach goes into the conference room, talks to Fatima, and it ends before we go over to the next scene when he brings up the subject of Chaz. And then when we jump back to the scene like 10 minutes later, Fatima and Zach talk Chaz, and then it shifts over to Andy acting different since Fatima got those new contracts, and Zach joking about, hey, no more gifts unless it's his and hers. And then that's when Chaz shows up. So basically, this is close to 7 to 10 minutes. So for obvious reasons, I could not put those clips in this video, copyright, all that good stuff. But what I did do was write down all the dialogue, and it was about a page. So we're going to go through it. And the reason I'm doing this video is to really show that what I'm about to say isn't anything new. We've been saying this since season 7, that these new writers just, for whatever reason, don't like Zach and Fatima. And it seems like they're doing everything they can to just ruin their relationship or showcase that they don't understand these characters. I mean, going back through this scene and dissecting it, it made me even more frustrated than I was Wednesday night. Because, of course, I posted a good chunk of videos over the weekend. One of them talking about how the writers rush peaceful resolutions for these characters. You know, the thumbnail where I had Zach, Fatima, Aaron, and Karen. And also, what kind of apology was this? When I did just like a 5 or 6 minute video about Zach so-called giving a so-called apology, and it didn't feel like it. And what killed me is that when you start this scene, when Zach comes around the corner to go into the room, they're playing this, background music that makes it seem like, oh, this is going to be an emotional moment where Zach and Fatima resolve their conflicts and everything. And it did not work. It didn't land for me. Now, I mentioned this in another video as well. I understand that fans who are just done with these two being at odds are just happy that hey, Zach revealed that he felt relief. Great. They're hugging and they're kissing and everything's going to be good. Sure, this week Zach's going to say the whole naked Andy thing and set Fatima off, but either way, I'm just glad they squashed the beef. I'm not satisfied. Because the way we got to this quote-unquote peaceful resolution was completely asinine. So if you're a person that feels, Jeremy, you're overanalyzing, Jeremy, why can't you just be happy the conflict's over? That's not how I operate. Case in point, like Gary with this about face and this personality, we can at least understand how we got to this point. Sure, him going to therapy and, recovering mentally from everything that occurred in the season 8 finale, it was off screen, but it was believable. Sure, it is still up in the air if he's being sincere, if he's really leaving town and things like that. But supposedly he gave Zach back that 100K, so it seems like he is making good on his promises to Andy to make things right by her and her friends. Now, when it comes to Zach and Fatima, on the other hand, we have this resolution, but the way Zach came up in that office and the way he was presenting his apology and accountability, it just did not ring. It did not make sense to the Zach we've come to know over all these seasons plus Zatima. Now, and this is another thing, and as I always say, I do not blame the actors when they make statements because they're really only going off of what the writers and creators of the show tell them. But I think about if I remember correctly, I think DeVal was on the Breakfast Club. Okay, he and Crystal were on. Was it the Breakfast Club? I know they were promoting Zatima season 4. Because I watched back-to-back interviews. I want to say it was Sway. It was the Breakfast Club. Because I think it was Just Hilarious. that talked about, what everybody talks about, the confusion of, wait, how come, Fatima got this huge baby bump like she's about to pop any moment on Zatima, but in Sistas it's not visible. And DeVal mentions how in Zatima, the show is about 4 months ahead of Sistas season 9. And I know people are frustrated with Zach now in terms of, him being closed off and not having conversations with Fatima. But, the fans were talking about how, Zach always brings his issues to Fatima. So the one time, Zach decides I want to keep something to myself, fans are, mad about it. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is a combination. Breakfast Club, Sway's Universe, and then the mid-season finale watch party of Sisters where DeVal, states these things. So I am not throwing him under the bus whatsoever. He can only really talk about the content that the writers give him. And it really is confusing. It certainly is confusing. I mean, I don't think that the argument can be made that, hey, well, you know what? The Zach we're seeing in Sisters right now hasn't gone through all the progress that he has on Zatima. That might have worked if we're talking about like Zach from season 5 of Sisters. That argument does not apply to Zatima and Sisters season 9 because it was stated in continuity, I believe, in season 6. It was one of those. It was before the new writers took over. Zach did mention therapy, so canonically, by that point in Sisters, we had already passed by the events of Zatima season 2, or at the very least, the halfway point. Meaning that season 9 Zach, who is insufferable, is a Zach that has gone to therapy. Now, that doesn't mean he's finished with therapy, but he has attended it. Now, if we're talking anger management, I agree. That didn't happen until just recently in Zatima season 4. But the argument still stands that we can no longer use the excuse of, well, Sister Zach hasn't gone through all of the growth and development from, Zatima. Because in my personal opinion, the Zach of season 9, and if we're being completely honest, the Zach from season 7, 8, and 9 have been coming across as much more hot-headed, ignorant, arrogant, and immature than even Zach from season 1. Seriously, that's what it seems like. So when I look at this particular scene, and I know I'm almost 8 minutes in and I haven't really talked about the scene itself, but I just wanted to set the stage as to why I was so frustrated. And people were like, Jeremy, last week's episode of Sisters was a 10 out of 10. It really wasn't, because we would have great scenes, but then the characters would just one or more, basically, we would have a real talk between characters. And when it seems one person was supposedly making growth, the other character would botch it up. But even worse is like when the Zach situation happened, he came up there like he was the one who was about to make amends, but yet constantly was deflecting accountability. And what makes this even worse is on the parallel side of the episode, we had this great conversation, a real talk between Aaron and Karen. But the issue with that is that conversation just felt rushed, not in the sense that the scenes itself were rushed, but it feels like we had a bunch of off-screen romance between Aaron and Karen to the point where, well, dang, it seems like the writers are more focused on quality material for Karen and Aaron and then giving Fatima and Zach the scraps, when it clearly used to be the other way around, when Zach and Fatima were the ones eating good off of the written material and ad-libs versus all the other characters being given next to nothing. I just don't know what to shake up the formula this much when we're this late into the show and it's clear who the fan favorites are. I feel for the actors. I really do. I mean, but Zach and Fatima, Crystal and DeVal, at least they got Courtney, who's been cooking up the best material these two have ever had in both shows for Zatima's season 4. But yeah, when you really think about it, when I finished taking the notes on this scene, I said, you know what? Let me go back and rewatch the Aaron and Karen scenes. And no, I'm not going to dissect everything about that scene. It was pretty straightforward. But things like, I love you, Aaron. I'm glad you're the father of my daughter, and this, that, and the third. And I'm just thinking, they had this long, fleshed out, real talk. Zach and Fatima needed the same thing, but even more. So we start off with Zach coming around the corner. First of all, he's showing up unannounced. And Fatima's already like, no, Zach, I'm not in. No. Look. I was at the house and I've been thinking about some stuff. The good stuff and the bad stuff. And for real, I just been thinking about how your hormones got you, just worked up about everything. So Fatima's already like, nope, you know what, go home. No, wait, let me finish. Well, when I say everything, your hormones got you a bit tweaked, but everything that's been going on has got the both of us a bit high strung. Folks, when you think back over the course of the past, 13 episodes? Yeah, this was episode 14, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, pull up on me. Last week's episode was episode 14. Look at the first 13 episodes of the season. And there was a lot that went on. But when we think about high strung in terms of who's been the one overly emotional, who's been the one with fluctuating outbursts of either joy, seclusion, or anger, between Zach and Fatima, who do you think this describes the most? I mean, he automatically lost me when he brought home hormones into the equation due to the fact that, yes, Fatima is pregnant, but when we're really looking at who's been the most unstable of the pair, it has been Zach. So, we go over to him hating how there was a lot of anger from last night and how Fatima left this morning. Now, here's my first thing. When it came to last night, sure, there was a lot going on between Chaz. Well, actually, Fatima finding out you told the nurse at the hospital, oh no, we're not doing anything for OBGYN. We got a midwife. And then she finds out from Chaz about you throwing a fit, almost getting to a fight at the juice bar. And the fact, she comes home angry and you're drunk as a skunk passed out on the couch. And then you get all up in her face about that purse she had no idea existed. And when you throw you were happy the stillborn was mine in her face, then she's about to leave and Chaz pops up. And then you two almost go at it. And Fatima put her foot down while you were there witnessing it. So then she makes you sleep on the couch. And you get a phone call who I'm presuming it's Miss Lisa. But we'll get to that in a moment. So you leave in the middle of the night without telling your fiance anything. And then she gets that call from Karen and goes out after. And then she calls you because you're missing. And she promises to tell you if Karen pops up over there, which she did not. So you're the one who started that crap because you were getting ready to start a fight at Karen's house in front of everybody. So then the next morning, who was the one posted up on the fridge ready to start some crap? It wasn't Fatima. It was you, Zach. And in terms of her leaving the house the way she did, you're the one who initiated this bull crap. So, then he goes on to say, yeah, because it just felt bad. My beautiful, intelligent, confident, soon-to-be wife carrying our baby went to work. And then Fatima's eating it up. But it's like, yeah, also the way you were out there last night in these streets looking for my ex-baby mama without telling me behind my back. And then it's like, yep, that was good, Zach, until you got to that last part. Oh, no, I'm playing. But all jokes aside, I was wrong about some things, and I'm here to take accountability. And Fatima's like, oh, okay. So then we get to the midwife, and it's like, look, I was going through something. That's why I chose the midwife. But look, it's our baby, but it's your body, and we're going to follow your lead. And I'm like, you know what, Zach? Good on you. And I got more things I want to get off my chest, but I want to hold my cards and let you go next. What? Yeah, I want to let you take a turn. So let's take a pause in the breakdown, and let's backtrack a little bit, from when he's complimenting her, but then about, Even though I felt some kind of way about you going out in these streets last night behind my back looking for my ex-baby mother. First of all, Zach, you're the one who left the house first behind your fiance's back, checking in on your missing ex-baby mama. That's the first thing. You did it first. You did that first. Secondly, these writers, remember how we were all like, you know what? These writers clearly did not watch the earlier seasons of the show. And then I think it was Jamie who gave, or Lucian, or I think it was Jamie though. After Jasmine got shot and killed in the finale, I think it was Jamie who was like, see, I told y'all we watched the earlier seasons. It seems like they only watched like the first couple. And that's it. Because it just based on the way they wrote some of these characters, it really feels like they only focused on season 1 deep cut lore that only diehard fans like myself and you all would recognize. But when there are certain nuances of the characters that go missing, where it's like, okay, we're in season 8. Why is this person acting like they did in season 1? They had growth. So it seems like they watched the first season. They skimmed over season 2. And that's it. And maybe picked up a few things from down along the way. But yeah, it's just weird because Zach is a joke, a clown at times. But when Zach and Fatima would have serious moments, there would be moments of levity. But the levels of pettiness was ridiculous. And it undercut what should have been a deep, long-waited conversation from the fans to get these two back on track. Because it's like, after everything that's been happening, this is not the time for jokes. And to like lure Fatima in with compliments, but then slam her for being deceptive, it killed the mood. I didn't care what this man said next. So, she does say she's sorry for not telling Zach about Karen's whereabouts, but I was respecting her wishes. I don't think she needed to apologize for that. Because like I said, I know it's a technicality, but Fatima did not break her promise to Zach. Zach said, let me know if she pops up, okay? And technically she did pop up on Fatima's phone, but he was alluding to if she popped up over at the house. And Fatima made the right decision. It's just like when you're driving and you notice somebody's either about to swerve into you, or let's say, here's a perfect example. Because I live out in the country and whatnot, a lot of trees. So, with all the wind and everything lately, sometimes there are branches and whatnot in the road. So, and I'm sure some of you all can identify with this regardless as to where you live. There might be some obstruction in the road, whether it's a large tree branch or some, a plastic bag, which you might think is trash, but it's like, you know what? I'm not going to run the risk of running over it. There could be some glass in it. There could be anything in it. So you're driving on the road and there are two solid lines. Now, not to pass over those lines unless you have the strips in there that are on your side, right? So you're like, okay, I'm going to check, make sure no one's coming in an opposing direction. I'm going to go around and then come back, on my side, right? Technically, I guess that's illegal. I know that's illegal, but I believe there are exceptions to the rule if there is something in the road. So basically, what I'm trying to get at, there are exceptions to every rule, right? So I feel like the same thing applies with Fatima in this situation. While she did promise Zach, I'd inform you if Karen popped up. She got that phone call from Karen first. And what was the first thing Fatima did after getting off the phone when Karen was like, don't tell Zach, this is between us? She ran downstairs screaming for Zach. Now, let's be real here. If Zach was still on the sofa and Fatima woke him up, he was going to ask, where are you going in the middle of the night? First of all, he would accuse her of going to see Chaz. But I think Fatima at that moment would have told Zach about Karen and they would have went together. That's what I think. Then she gets on the phone to call Zach. And after finding out where he is, why he left, and there's like a search party out for Karen, she made the right decision, the exception to the rule. You know what? I think in order to bring everything down, I'll go handle this myself. That way, it wouldn't cause a bunch of commotion. All right. Because if I can tell Zach right now, Karen called me, she texted me the address. The last thing she needs is like 50 people in a SWAT team going to her location, because it seems like this is a very emotional, intimate thing that she wants to keep low key. So me calling in all the reinforcements, I think, is going to do the opposite of we don't need a chainsaw. We need a surgeon with a small scalpel, because this is very delicate. There's no need to rock the boat when all we need is a small hammer and a tiny nail. You see what I'm saying here? So I don't think she made the wrong decision. So from there, let me see here. Oh yeah, Zach's like, oh, okay, so what, y'all besties now? And she's like, well, we're cool by some, miracle, by the grace of God. Which I don't know why Zach said that in such a condescending, semi-jealous way. Zach, what about for those seasons when you were like, come on, you know what? I think you and Karen need to, bury the hatchet and whatnot. And I know that ticked off fans, including myself, like in season 7, when fans are like, why do the writers keep making it seem like Fatima needs to make peace with Karen and whatnot, when she's been nothing but tolerant and respectful, and on rare instances claps back when Karen's the one who starts crap? So they made it seem like both Fatima and Karen were in the mix, when it's Karen always starting stuff. But no, you're just mad. Okay. So from there, she's like, well, I don't think I was wrong. And accountability. Yeah, shut up, Zach. About feeling relief. And I'm so glad. 2 things. Number 1, she clarified relief about the stillborn. Zach, she did not say she was happy about the stillborn. And number 2, the fact that she did not apologize for it. And whether or not you agree with how Fatima felt, you cannot deny that she has every right to not apologize for feeling how she felt. Now, she does say that I should have found some way to express it to you so we can have this conversation. However, I mentioned this in a previous video. It is completely understandable, because by this point, let me put a pin in that thought. So Zach is like, look, I understand, because I've been beating myself up, because I've been going back and forth where there were moments where I felt the exact same way. And this is where Zach truly pissed me off. You see, this is a tough conversation. These are the kind of conversations we need to get used to having. It's progress. Zach, I understand you needing to process things, right? You went through a lot, from saving Andy's life to almost getting killed yourself, to then going to the hospital. Well, excluding the naked Andy thing. We'll talk about that later. Going to the hospital, discovering one baby is a stillborn, and then Karen and the surviving baby might not make it if an emergency C-section or the proper medical attention is received. Then you find out the stillborn is yours. Yeah, you being closed off makes sense. But the thing is, this is over the course of a few days. I'm not saying he should easily get over it in a couple of days, but what I'm saying is, how can you expect Fatima to have a tough conversation when you wouldn't be open with her whatsoever? Because when you went over to Karen's place, you and her, Kiki, Karen and Zach had a tough conversation, which needed to be had to get some sort of closure. And that was great. I remember, I think it was Cutting Ties. Was that like episode 6, episode 7 of this season? But then the very next episode, the writing made it seem like no progress was made whatsoever. Because Fatima came home from work, wanted to talk with you, and you were just grunting and stuff. And she mentioned like the athletic contracts. And then I went to see Karen. What? And then you made it seem like that conversation did nothing. When in actuality, the end of that episode, Karen came out of her room. She was, a bit more happy. She wasn't closed off. She even thanked Aaron at the end of the episode, and Danny took care of her. It felt like some progress was made. Not a complete healing, but the fact that you two were moving in the right direction with your opposite lives no longer tethered to each other. But then the next episode, you're in this funk. Fatima's doing anything and everything to try to get you out of it, and then you bring in the midwife crap. See, these writers just, it's so infuriating because, yeah, Fatima wanted to have this conversation, and how could she find a way to tell you so this tough conversation could be had so you can both be honest with each other in terms of feeling relief, but you were completely shut down? It's ridiculous. All right. Now, that's when Zach does another ignorant thing. Okay, next. Yeah, those 2 little apologies or what you got? Talk about, I gotta look at the definition for anti-accountability. And then Fatima rightfully says, well, I don't know what you're talking about because everything else is your fault. Seriously, I don't really know what Zach was saying. It's like, I swear, I know this is arrogant, but on some level, I feel like this is true. I think these writers, as I mentioned earlier, watched the first 1 or 2 seasons, and then from there, they did like a Cliff Notes or Spark Notes skim of the series where it's like, hey, let's check YouTube. I know this one dude who does videos on the show. I know there's a couple other sizable YouTube channels. Let's just skim through their back catalog of videos and see what they're talking about the most. What are some of the most viewed Sistas related content? Because I'm thinking to myself, they might have looked for people like me and noticed that I did a lot of videos speaking out against Fatima. And that's why they wrote it in a way where Fatima needs to apologize. And I'm like, see, here's the issue with that. The Fatima from the past couple seasons has been a lot better than season 5 because Lord have mercy, season 5 Fatima was the worst. Like, the way Zach is stepping up to her about being accountable and crap, this is the Zach that we should have seen in season 5. That's when Fatima was just awful, as well as Zatima season 3, but I don't like talking about that. But the Fatima we have now, it's like, it does not match up. You see what I'm saying? We're in season 9, but Zach is saying and doing things he should have done a few seasons ago. And we're completely backtracking the character. So that's when you think about what Fatima said, everything else is your fault. Zach, when you look at all the debates and arguments you two have had this season, they've all been your fault. Shut up. Then he brings up Chaz. What? So Chaz was my fault? Well, technically, in terms of you wanting to fight and crap, that was all you. The fact that you had no faith in Fatima to be loyal, despite everything she stuck with you through, I don't, man. So Fatima's like, look, you were right about Chaz being out of pocket for popping up last night. Yep. Hey, but if you say I told you so, you back on that couch. So that's when he decides to put his foot down in terms of, you know, hey, no more gifts unless it's his and hers because we could both use it. And that's when they have the heart-to-heart about Fatima wanting to carve her own path at the firm, doing these contracts. And then, you know, that's when Zach gives her the vote of confidence. You know what? F Andy, she feels some kind of way about it. And that's pretty much it. You know, Chaz shows up and Fatima stands up for her man. And, yeah, well, and that's it. But, yeah, overall, I just feel like this scene in general, it did nothing in order to help advance the relationship of Zach and Fatima. It felt like we took 15 steps forward. Not 2, not 5, but like 15. Because the writers put way more care in the scenes with Karen and Aaron. 2 characters who haven't even canonically been in a relationship. They were dating in season 2. Aaron was chasing Karen for like 5 or 6 seasons, with occasionally Aaron giving him some play only because she felt some kind of way about Zach not giving her the time of day. And they've cordially been coexisting because he's the father of one of her babies. And she told Zach she was going to try to make things work with Aaron and start a family. And now they're talking about moving out of town together. So, yeah, they got way more love and attention. It's almost like the writers are low-key preparing for a emotional Karen departure when she's been anything but a character that you root for in the series. Whereas the fan favorites have been discarded and given this half-assed reconciliation. So no, I did not like this scene, and it really took away from the episode. But that leads into, you know, this week with the whole, hey, I saw Andy naked, because as Zach said, I got some more stuff, but I'm going to hold those cards to my chest. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.